It's time to rank your Iowa Hawkeyes. A look at why Iowa should be ranked in this week's top 25 and what the pollsters missed.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for 20 years on the radio. You can hear me currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network each weekday from noon to 2, talking the world of sports and lots of Hawkeyes with you, with stations in Des Moines, Sioux City, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, and the Quad Cities. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today, we are going to take a look at this squad and what they have done, what they've accomplished to this point in time, setting up a huge matchup as they face off against Oregon. What college football is about in 2025, it is the playoff, and Iowa's got a chance as we go to November. Plus, we'll look back at the win against Minnesota and give out the grades that were handed out by Pro Football Focus. But we begin today's program with a look at the rankings. As Sunday afternoon, the AP Top 25 came out, and once again, the Iowa Hawkeyes were not ranked in the top 25. It was a swing and a miss from the pollsters, and outside of two voters, one of them right here in the state of Iowa, Mike Halas having the Hawkeyes 18th, another voter that has Notre Dame ties. There wasn't a whole lot there. In fact, Iowa receives just 27 votes in the poll. Few had them in that 24-25 range. But the problem when you go through and you look at this, and what I'm sure people are missing about this Iowa team and the Big Ten as a whole, I mean, this is a big picture conversation about the Big Ten and about Iowa, as the Hawkeyes sit at 5-2. And we can be frustrated about the loss to Iowa State. We can be obviously disappointed what happened against Indiana and the woulda, shoulda, completing a screen pass and how different things could look. But alas, you are what you are. And as you look through the bottom tier of the top 25, you get through, those top level teams, and you get into that range starting at number 18. And this is where really the frustration begins. You have Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas. And all those teams certainly have warts. I mean, you look at this Missouri squad, they're 6-2. What have they done? What is the accomplishments that you say, yes, Missouri needs to be in there? Remember, this is a team that didn't leave the confines of their season until basically halfway through the year. They played at home for the beginning half of the season. You couple that with wins against Central Arkansas, a 4-4 Kansas team, Louisiana, not LSU, Louisiana, South Carolina, who's 1-5 in the SEC, UMass, well, we saw them, and Auburn, who's 1-4 in the SEC. That's their resume. But they have that moniker. In fact, when you look at the AP Top 25 website, right next to their name, Missouri 6-2, Southeastern, as in the Southeastern Conference. Up next, the Texas Longhorns. What have they accomplished? Outside being ranked early and playing in the SEC, nothing. And maybe the biggest one is Oklahoma. I mean, that Oklahoma team does not look like the same team that we saw early in the season. The win against Michigan's nice. That's a nice win. But the depth of the resume isn't there. And maybe the most egregious out of the SEC is a team that is well above them. The 14th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. You say, well, Tennessee, I mean, that was a playoff team a year ago. It's not about last year. What have they done this year to make you believe that they should be the 14th ranked team in the country? It's not to say that Iowa should be 14th in the country. That's not what this argument is. But when you look at the groupthink that starts to fall in, and when you have these preseason polls, and then after those preseason polls, which I'm fine with, but if you're going to have polls early in the season, you got to dig a little bit deeper. You got to put in the work. And unfortunately, enough people don't do the work. Tennessee is in the top 15 with wins against Syracuse, who's 3-5. East Tennessee State, UAB, who just fired their coach. Mississippi State, who hasn't won a conference game. Arkansas, who hasn't won a conference game. Kentucky, stop me if you've heard this, has not won a conference game. And that's the 14th best team in the country? Why? They're ranked in the preseason. They beat who they're supposed to. but they don't have anything of substance on their resume. Now, Iowa's got work to do, and this will all sort itself out. As we've talked about, Iowa, if they win out, they are in the college football playoff at 10-2. They're in. Simple as that. That's not easy. Oregon, road trip to USC, home for Sparty before the road trip on Black Friday on a short week against Nebraska. Still, it's all still there in front of them. They control their destiny to get in. It's going to happen if they win out. Easier said than done. But when you look at this Iowa squad and what they're doing, and you look at the resume as a whole, and not just winning games, but dominating. The dominating performance against your rivals, against Minnesota, against Wisconsin. I mean, that has to be eye-opening. There has to be more to it. And in fact, the computers do just that. When you look at the computer ranking systems out there, now one of my favorites is S&P Plus with ESPN. And with S&P Plus, you have Iowa up to 17th in the country, ranked 17th. Also has metrics for the offense, up to 47th. And what an accomplishment that is, as we've seen so many poor offenses here over the last 6 years of what they've turned into. The sixth best defense, and this is not just total yards. Iowa's second in the country in that. That is also taking, taking into the fact how many plays you're going up against. It is more than just style of play. It takes a look at the substance. And the 39th best special teams. But that's just one ranking system. Yet, it's not alone. Iowa's 17th in the Sagarin ratings, 18th in the Massey ratings. These computer models are doing a better job of understanding that this Iowa football team is good, top 20 good. The pollsters, they're missing. Now we'll see what happens this week. You got plenty of games this week that definitely could knock teams out. USC's ranked 23rd. They go to Nebraska. USC's a favorite in that game still. Utah ranked 24th. They got Cincinnati coming in. Cincinnati team, by the way, that since their loss to Nebraska to open up the season has been ripping off victories nonstop throughout the course of the year. Memphis, who just got a huge win last week, they go to a tricky spot against Rice this week, and their quarterback's banged up, though he played last week against South Florida. There will be opportunities for Iowa to move up. There will be teams that lose. That is the greatness of college football. But here's somebody that I think put it even more eloquently. This is Jake Butt, former Michigan tight end and an analyst for the Big Ten Network and Fox. This is what Jake Butt had to say. This is not a guy wearing a Hawkeye hat like me. This is Jake Butt. The case for Iowa to be ranked is also quite clear. Aside from their record, which includes a number of flat-out dominant victories, including playing clean football in all three phases, Iowa has 2 losses, one early in the season, road loss to the rival, but the real tragedy to not rank them, since the SEC loves to talk about quality losses and hypotheticals, is their loss to number 2, Indiana. Iowa proved themselves to be, by far, the toughest opponent the Hoosiers have seen this year. Iowa nearly beat them, and here's the hypothetical, they likely would have beaten them had their starting quarterback not getting injured in the game. Absolutely. Iowa beat Wisconsin better than Oregon. They beat both Wisconsin and Minnesota in similar fashions as the number 1 ranked Buckeyes. They have, once again, one of the more disciplined and sound defenses in all of college football. They have one of the best special teams in all of college football, but offensively, they have relative firepower. The run game is dominant, led by dominant offensive line. Gronowski's legs give them complementary layers that teams have to account for, and at times, he's even made throws that we've only seen a handful of times from Iowa quarterbacks in the last decade. It is, once again, a travesty to not have the Hawkeyes ranked. Both by resume and eye test, they are deserving. The only explanation is bias and or disrespect. It's inexcusable. The only positive that could come from is future conference crossover games in the regular season. To remove bias, we need more real data. We need to see these teams play one another during the regular season. In a perfect world, it wouldn't just be one time either. It would be 2 or 3 crossover games for each of these competing playoff bubble teams. Rank the Hawkeyes. Also has ranked the Huskies, Washington in there as well. Jake Butt, you absolutely nailed it. It's time to rank the Hawkeyes. We got time before we get to the matchup against Oregon. We will break that down with the bye week this week for the Hawkeyes. Coming up next, a final look back at the win against Minnesota. The grades from Pro Football Focus. How did the Hawkeyes grade out in this one? We'll take a look at the offense. We'll take a look at the defense. We roll on This is Locked On Hawkeyes. College football is here, and well, we couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, energy in the stands. There's nothing like college football. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you say is what you pay. Open up that Gametime app. You can find tickets for the Oregon game. How about Senior Day against Michigan State? They got you covered at Kinnick Stadium. And on top of it, you can find great deals all across the country. Wherever you are, you want to make college football special, they got you covered. It's cheaper, faster, and less stressful than any other way that I bought tickets. I love the ability to see exactly where you're going to be sitting inside the stadium, or just getting there and knowing what you're actually going to pay. No more surprise fees at checkout. An absolute game changer with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Trent Condon back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Big thank you to everyday listeners with us each and every day. We are your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast, and our everydayers couldn't do it without your support. Make sure you're hitting subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. 5-star reviews. Need some more of those over on the podcast side. All that helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Let's take a look back at the dominating win against Minnesota. Hawkeyes win it 41-3. Oh boy, how good that feels. Let's go through and let's start with the offense and the grades that were handed out by Pro Football Focus. Now, once Iowa jumped out to even that 17-0 lead, it was just game over, right? It was so dominant, and you knew you weren't going to see a ton out of Iowa. They weren't going to be, running all kinds of crazy plays. It was going to be very simplified. Here's the first thing, though. Mark Gronowski, he grades out a 67.3 grade. Very good on that one. But he was not the top-ranked quarterback. No, Jeremy Hecklinski, who came in the fourth quarter, a 70.7 rating. Got to see a little bit more out of him, which was great to see him going out there and getting a little bit more. In the end, he finished up the football game, playing the final 6 snaps offensively of the game. Of course, had the rushing touchdown in there, and excited, certainly, about his future for this Iowa team and what he was able to do. When you look at Gronowski, he played well, ran the ball well, did all the things we're used to, and it still feels like there's even more upside to this passing game. Kamari Moulton is your top-rated running back at 67.2. Man, Kamari Moulton just runs so hard, and I thought he was excellent in the game. Good pass blocking grade also from Moulton in this one. Good to see Jazzion Patterson back out there once again. He finishes with a 62.4 grade, solid grade out of him. Nathan McNeil is 60.4, and Xavier Williams with a 51. When you look at the snap count at the running back position, 30 snaps for Kamari Moulton. He is your number one guy now. Patterson with 11, Williams with 11, and 4 for Nathan McNeil. And we finish up out of the skill positions over at wide receiver, Caden Weechin. They're using him a lot of different ways every day. As you know, we talked about that a little bit more and how he is becoming a bigger focal point of what they're doing offensively. A 74.6 grade for Caden Weechin. Reese Vanderzee next up, 68.3. Of course, had the big catch in the end zone for the touchdown, the 29-yarder. Jacob Gill with a 63.9. KJ Parker, 59. Sam Phillips at 57, got him involved early. And Seth Anderson with a 47. In terms of snap count in the game, Seth Anderson, he led the way. He had 36 snaps. Gill with 31. Both those guys pretty solid blockers. Gill with the 31, as mentioned. Reese Vanderzee with 26. Want to see that number push it up a little bit more. And with the Oregon game on tap, need Vanderzee out there. Want to see that 26 number, probably approaching 40, I'd guess, in the matchup against the Ducks. Sam Phillips with 24, 18 for Weechin, and KJ Parker with 5. And then we wrap things up over with the big guys. Let's start with the tight end position in this one. Not a lot, again, out of the tight end spot. Ortworth with a 58 grade. Hayden Large with a 51.7. Michael Burt with a 41 with no DJ Vanami in the lineup. And then finally the offensive line. And boy, we saw a ton of them. Trevor Locke is your best rated guy. Lauk goes with a 76.2 grade. Jennings Dunker a 73. Pieper a 72. Logan Jones a 71. All these grades, good grades on their scale. Leighton Jones, who had to come in with the injury to Bo Stevens, he graded out well as also a 68.9 for him, 68 for Stevens. We need to get him healthy, though, and ready to go for that Oregon game. And then the reserves come in, 67 for Doetzler. Good to see Bryce George out there, a 66. Myslinski, a 64. Caden Leonard, big dude, 60.9 for him. Cale Winter with the 60, and Brody McCaskey also with a 60. And when you look at the snap count in the game, 50 snaps for your top guys with Logan Jones and Cade Pieper, 45 for Lauk, Dunker with 42, Jones with 40, Doetzler 18, Stevens with that injury with 15, Myslinski, George, Leonard, all with 6 snaps, and 1 each for Winter and McCaslin. So that's a look at the offense of the grades from Pro Football Focus. Let's jump over to the defensive side of the football. Iowa, great once again there, and just had the Gophers on skates all game long. Your top-ranked guy on the defensive line was Max Llewellyn. How about this? An 87.9 elite number for Llewellyn. His pass rush grade, a 86.8, an elite number there out of him. Bryce Hawthorne was solid, a 71.5, a very good run defense grade for Bryce Hawthorne. Devin Kennedy, who we got to see late in the game and excited about his upside. Him, Yosei Epinesa, yeah, those guys are going to be good in the future. Jonah Pace with the 69. Aaron Graves with the 66. Hubert came in there. He got a 58.9. Good to see him back out on the field. Ethan Herkett with the 57. Pittman a 52. Joseph Anderson, talk about upside. He's got that going forward, a 50.9. Brian Allen with a 50.7. And Kenneth Merriweather had the lowest grade out of the defensive line with a 46.9 and had a bad penalty in there. And don't be doing that. Don't be doing that at all. But the defensive line played great against Minnesota. Your top-rated linebacker, Cam Buffington, had the interception. And, dude, that guy, we've talked a ton about Preston Reese. We've talked about Derek Weisskopf. But Cam Buffington, he looked the part. Speaking of Preston Reese, he grades out well. A 74.2 for him. Rex Roth, out of the regulars, if you will, a 71. Landon Van Keckrick, 69. 68 for Weisskopf. Dylan DeLong is 65. Your two lowest rated guys are your two starters. Carson Shire with a 65 and a 62 out of Jaden Montgomery. Cam Buffington, might not be this year, but in the future, get excited about him. Get excited about Preston Reese. And they're even deeper at that young linebacker spot. Finally, defensive back, Zach Lutmer with an 84, of course, had the pick 6. His coverage grade was the top in 86.2 for Lutmer. Deshaun Lee continues to play at a high level, a 78. TJ Hall also with an interception. He grades out with the 75. Wampa is 66. His tackle grade, and that has changed for Xavier Wampa, continues to go up. Saw a bunch of other guys out there. Jalen Watson, Alex Moda, Rashad Godfrey, some of those youngsters getting in there and seeing some playing time. Cohen Intringer with the 63.9. And Hawkeye fans, are we happy that he didn't get that targeting call? Because, boy, how different the first half maybe could be without Intringer out there overall. Look at the snap counts as well. Aaron Graves led the way with 30. Llewellyn had 27 out of the reserves, though. Good to see Epinesa, Joseph Anderson, both those guys with 14 snaps in the game. Good to see those guys out there. At the linebacker spot, Carson Shire led the way with 37 snaps. Montgomery with 35. Buffington played 15 snaps in the game. Something to keep an eye on. Reese with 4 snaps late in the game. And finally, in the defensive backfield, Cohen Entringer led the way. He had 40 snaps, 37 for Lutmer, 37 for Hall and Wampa, 33 for Deshaun Lee. That's kind of been the rotation that we've seen. And then a bunch of the reserves getting out there. Kolaric, Watson, Girardi, Barros, Godfrey, and Moda all out there on the field. Add it all up, 41-3. Dominating performance for Iowa in the win against Minnesota. So those are the grades from Pro Football Focus. They match up with what you look at. That's what we like to look at every single week. We got some news for you. Iowa, Oregon, we've talked about it a ton already. Kickoff time, when's it going to be? I know it's the big question out there. Plus, what college football is about. Iowa's playing for it. We'll do that as we roll through Locked On Hawkeyes. Well, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything. Who score the next fourth quarter comebacks, to a whole lot more. They got you covered on everything you want with live betting. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I've told you before about those same game parlays, how fun they are before the game starts. How about live same game parlays? FanDuel has you covered. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. FanDuel.com. Trent Condon back with you one final time here, Locked On Hawkeyes. As always, thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Kickoff time for Iowa, Oregon. We don't know yet. And I know that sucks for a lot of people traveling in. I know this was a game that was circled in a lot of people's calendars, something that they want to see. Oregon making their first trip to Iowa City since the early 1990s, and things didn't go very well in those matchups as Oregon was finally starting to ascend as a program at that time. But the Ducks will come in. It will be either an 11 a.m. kickoff or 2:30. 11 will be on Big Fox. That will be the big noon kickoff. They'll have the whole crew that'll come in town for that one. Or it'll be the CBS game at 2:30. Those are the two likely destinations for this one. Now, we do know that Iowa and Oregon is going to be a big matchup. I mean, determining pecking order, Big Ten. Oregon's not out of things yet for getting into the Big Ten championship game, though it seems unlikely with what Ohio State and Indiana still have remaining on their schedule. There is speculation out there that if Indiana takes care of business this week on the road at Maryland as a 21.5-point favorite, that Fox is going to select the Hoosiers. Indiana going on the road to Penn State. And though we know Penn State is obviously diminished from what their preseason expectations, that would be the direction that they would go. And it would lead to a 2:30 kickoff then for Iowa, Oregon, if that plays out. They have announced a couple of games in the Big Ten. There's a Friday night game that week as well. It'll be a noon kickoff, weird for Ohio State at Purdue, and a 1:30 kickoff, another weird one for Maryland and Rutgers on FS1. So those are the two that we know right now, but we'll lock and load as they await the availability of some of the others. I know a lot of people would love to see that 2:30 kickoff for tailgating purposes, and for the tailgating purposes, I'm right there with you. But that 11 a.m. kickoff, sleepy spot, 9 a.m. body clock game for Oregon are the worst things. Let's have it be a little bit miserable. Slow down that Oregon team just a little bit. I think that'd be a good thing to say. And, as we wrap up here today, this is what it's all about. And as we've built from, the old days of the bowl system into the BCS and the top two teams playing for a national championship, morphing into the 4-team playoff and where we are today in the 12-team version. We're waiting for this moment. Now you go back to 2015, and Iowa with a win against Michigan State, they would have been in the Big Ten championship game. If they would have won that game against Spartans, they would have been playing Alabama in the college football playoff. Now, we saw how it went both for Michigan State against Alabama, not good, and Iowa also that year in the Rose Bowl against Stanford. I think we all remember that one. Still, that aside, with this 12-team playoff, is it going to be an every year occurrence? No. Is it going to be likely more times than not that I was going to be in the hunt for a playoff? No. So let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy what we're going to be going through here over the next 12 days and enjoy the buildup that's going to build to crescendo at Kinnick Stadium and be ready to go and be fired up and do just everything that you hope for as a Hawkeye fan. Yeah, you can be disappointed in the losses, but let's get this thing going. I was going to go to their first game in November with the chance of getting into the college football playoff. It's not a high chance. It's not overly likely that this is going to happen. In fact, the odds at FanDuel right now have it very unlikely. 13-1 that Iowa makes the college football playoff. Those are the odds that are out there. Yet, even with that, there are 6 teams listed to make the college football playoff out of the Big Ten. Ohio State, since they're basically a shoo-in, not even listed here. But Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Oregon, USC, and Washington are the teams that are listed. I was amongst that group. It's all in front of them. I mean, you put together a parlay, a 4-team roll-it-over parlay with Iowa to win each game. I don't know if you get better odds than you win the 13-1 that is out there. Still, it's there. And Iowa is in the conversation. And it's great to listen to the national people. And they're talking about Iowa. And that we are part of the conversation. It's what you hope for. And we're here. Enjoy it, Hawkeye fans. That'll do it for today. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On Big Ten. Craig Sheeman breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries, the championship, and everything in between. You can find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow as we do each and every day. Thanks for being with us as always. We'll talk to you then. Go Hawks.